everyone, welcome. This is another lecture in the series Interview Communication. Today I'm going to discuss behavioral questions, which makes an integral part of most of the HR interviews and definitely some part of the tech interviews or any business interview that you're going to give. Right. And all of us who are not great at communication, especially speaking English, right? These type of interviews can be a bit confusing at the least. At worst, they can be nerve-wracking. Just imagining कि चाहता क्या है, what does this person, what does this interviewer want from me, right? So that's what we are going to discuss. As always, we are going to deal with the psychology of the interviewer and also how to use that psychology to craft our answers while we are practicing for our interviews, right? Though these lecture series are mostly for freshers, but this specific lecture is useful for everyone who is going for an interview because these type of questions increases as you grow further into your career, right? So without further delay, let's start with what are we going to cover today, right? So as I told you, we are going to cover behavioral questions. The example can be in an interview, someone is asking you, have you ever failed? Or someone is asking you, tell me about a situation where you have failed. Now these two questions, though framed differently, are exactly the same. But when we are in an interview, some freshers, especially when it is framed like the first format, that have you ever failed? Honestly, it's not a yes-no question. Grammatically, it's a yes-no question, but you have to tell a situation. So it's a behavioral or situational question, and there's a technique to answer these questions, right? Make sure you are being specific and not arrogant, depending upon the situation. Try to limit your details. That does not mean you are just speaking 2 or 3 sentences or saying yes or no, but it cannot be a 5-minute answer. Right. Focus on yourself. The interviewer wants to know about you, the actions you took in those situations, your qualities, your attributes, not your team. That's not to say that you cannot talk about your team, but the ratio has to be skewed towards yourself. Mostly आपको अपने बारे में बताना है rather than team के बारे में. Another thing, and that's the focus of today's lecture, is structuring your answer. So content is one thing, and then there's a way to structure. The most commonly used structure in these interviews is called S.T.A.R, and we'll discuss about S.T.A.R. S.T.A.R method is today's S.T.A.R. And eventually the psychology is any answer of a behavioral question is telling about your attributes. So every time you're practicing, every time you're thinking for an interview कि अगर इस तरह का question आएगा, what will I say? Always analyze by saying, what attributes the interviewer get from my answer, right? And that's what it is, right? And that's how you think about. Many people ask कि how do we decide कि क्या situation बोलना है, ये situation बोल सकते हैं नहीं बोल सकते? The answer is always, it's not about the particular situation. It's about out of that situation, जिस तरह से आपने situation का मैं बताया है, what attributes, what qualities about you were you able to show? So first is knowing about S.T.A.R, what S.T.A.R is, and then obviously perfecting your answer using S.T.A.R method. Just knowing about S.T.A.R is not enough, and that's what people make mistakes in. कि S.T.A.R तो पता ही है, बना लेंगे, right? So I have said S.T.A.R, 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 S.T.A.R again and again. Let me summarize, let me crystallize what the 90-second S.T.A.R approach is, right? For resume and interview, right? So S.T.A.R is an abbreviation for situation, task, action, and result. These are the 4 things, 4 headlines or titles that you talk about when you answer a behavioral question, right? You talk about the situation, the event, the project, the setting of that situation, the challenge that you faced. What was the task? Like the task can be that I had to complete that project within 2 months, right? The specific task that came out of that situation, the action you took, the procedure, the response, your response to finish that task, right? So that's where the action you took comes into play. And then eventually the result, what happened, what came out of those actions, right? And the result has to be as objective as possible, as positive as possible, right? So this is your 90-second STAR approach, and you should be able to crystallize it ideally in between 90 seconds, but definitely not more than 3 minutes, right? So keep in mind, you have to be specific. You have to make sure that you are establishing all the sources. Prepare in advance. Don't try to think of situations impromptu. Your outcome has to be, the interviewer should be able to visualize your outcome and how does your attributes benefiting the employer. Remember, it's always about how you can be an asset to the company if we hire you. So this is the 90-second STAR approach. And this is actually, I think, a long time back, Bill Gates' resume got published on the internet. You can see actually in his resume, he has used STAR approach to make his resume. Right? Go on the internet and search for it. So let's go deep into the STAR method, right? So again, the numbers that I have written on the screen, you can see on the screen, are just, you can't be exact, but it shows you the priority or at least the importance of each segment, right? So as we told you, the STAR is situation, task, action, result. The situation setting should take not more than 20% of whatever time you are consuming. Task should be very crisp. What were the tasks, what are the challenges that you are facing? Action needs to be the major part. Here, mostly you're talking about yourself and showing the qualities that you possess. And the result again has to be crisp. Right. As we discussed, make sure it is concise. You are not blabbering. Around 2 minutes, 90 seconds is ideal, but definitely not more than 3 minutes. If you feel that you are blabbering, try to cut short your answer, try to cut short some of your things. Definitely task and situation, right? Action, sometimes people try to bluff the action up and start telling stories. Action is what it is. You need to tell your actions that you took and not the story thing, right? As we discussed, focus on your actions. But if you have researched on the company and you feel that company actually prioritizes team related points, you can actually put some team related points which shows that you are a team worker, again including that, oh, we worked in a team, I and my team, and these kind of things, where you can show your team leadership qualities, team related qualities in that interview. And the results cannot be only this, that, oh, I finished that project that I took, right? It has to show some learning aptitude, it has to show some objectivity, it has to show something that is equally important to your action. Now let's pick one components in brief. So this is a chart, you can take a screenshot, right? So again, situation is for setting the stage for the story, provide relevant background, ideally 2-3 sentences. Task is your mission, your challenge, the task that has to be accomplished. It's a bridge between your story and the interviewer question, right? Action, you can pick those actions. Some of the actions that you took can be establishing team responsibilities, collecting data analytics, drawing conclusions, communicating and gaining buy-in, implementing solution. Again, these are just some examples, some words, some phrases that you can use. As you can see, each of these shows some qualities that an employer wants. And the results are always about what did you accomplish, right? How it relates to the interviewer question. Make sure, again, it needs to come in a flow, right? If your result is quantifiable, quote numbers, right? And in the end, again, re-emphasize your skill set, team management, structured, objectivity, learning attitude, right? And I'll show it to you in the case where even the question is negative. In fact, let me ask you this, right? So it's very easy to maybe share result where there is an objective result, but a pretty standard question in many behavioral interviews is, which we took, tell me about a situation where you failed. Now the question can be in some of the minds ki, can't we say कि हम तो कभी fail ही नहीं हुए. Now we are not talking about academic failure, right? We are talking about failure in general. Now imagine someone saying to you कि मैं जिंदगी में कभी किसी भी चीज में fail नहीं हुआ. This sounds arrogant, this sounds unbelievable, right? And the interviewer is not going to basically discuss with you कि ऐसा कैसे हो गया and all that. It sounds unbelievable, right? It is going to act negatively. So think of a situation. It can be a social situation, it can be a personal project, it can be anything else where you failed. But now the question is, maybe you have told about situation, task, action. Maybe you're talking about there was a project that I was not able to complete due to some reasons. I took these actions. Now, how can we tell the result? How can the result be positive? We are literally talking about a project where we failed. Think about it. And again, remember, I told you, right? The result is always again about showing your positive qualities. Now, in the case of failure, what can be positive qualities? Imagine आप अपने failure के बारे में बता रहे हो. What can be a person's positive qualities in case of failure? Think, tell me. Yeah, definitely. So, in case of failure, one very positive quality that you can show and should show is your learning attitude. That though I failed, but even from that situation, I realized, I learned to basically do this, and that made me a better person. Now, this shows as a result that you have a learning attitude, right? For example, I said, I tell you, the situation was mostly about that I have to plan a party, right? And the responsibility lied on me. The task was to basically organize a party within 2 days. I'm just giving you some, and I called all the vendors. I gave them advance. I requested them to basically, I made an itinerary, I made a timetable so that I can see that everything is fitting. Everything was very tight, but was fitting. I was very sure that the event will go great. But in the end, what happened was that one of the food vendors basically said that his food has run out because instead of 200 guests, 250 guests turned up. I was in a panic mode, but then I calmed myself. I said I planned what I can do about it. And then I basically asked the vendor if he knows someone who can provide me 50 plates in emergency. He gave me some contact of 2 or 3 vendors. I quickly reached them out. Yes, they charged me a bit more, but I had to say ki reputation versus this. And this is how I handle the situation. Now the result here can be that what I learned, though the event went okay, not as good as basically it could have happened almost, but what I learned was that when you're planning something, you need to keep some buffer, right? There can always be emergencies, there can always be situations which you didn't expect, so you need to keep some time buffers, you need to keep some buffer in your management. And that's what I do. That's exactly what I do these days when I'm planning some event, when I'm planning something, keeping buffer. Now this result is basically showing ki, though basically the thing failed, the party failed, right? But this person has a learning attitude. So this is what I meant by the psychology going into you, because many students get stuck in this and say कि fail हो गए, इसमें positive क्या दिखाएं, इसमें result क्या दिखाएं, fail हो गए. That's not the way of thinking. The way of thinking is someone listening to this, whatever I'm saying, what attitude, what attribute, what personality trait will he get, and can I show some positive personality trait? That's the only thing that matters. Okay, on your screen, I request you to do full screen, right, so that you can read it out. I have put 2 questions, right, and then their answers. Take 2 minutes, read these. I could have put it into different slides, but I want you to look at them parallelly and also in one flow, right? So if you have to zoom in the screen, please pause and you can zoom in. So the first question is, describe a time when you had to use your analytical skills to solve a complex problem. And the second is, describe a time you had to use your leadership skills unexpectedly, right? As you can see that action is taking the biggest space here. Situation, task, and result are around 20%, 10% each. Right? So let me read it out to you. You can also pause this, and if you're able to read it and see the framework, the words used, the flow. So describe a time when you had to use your analytical skills to solve a complex problem. Right. Here, the person is saying the situation began when my company's new CEO suspected that our inventory system was inefficient. So she put me in charge of proposing a new system. Very crisp situation that there was some situation that CEO suspected and she put me in charge. Now, what was the task? Right. So my task was to thoroughly assess the company's current process as well as existing and prospective needs, future needs, currently available solutions, and finally to gain buy-in on a solution across the team. Finally, to make sure that all the team members, all the business units are agreeing on that. So I basically had to apply my analytical skills across a range of variables to complete this complex task. Right? Setting up what the task was. Now action, you can see the action is divided into basically different paragraphs, you can say. First, then. There's a structure, almost a logical flow. What did I do? Then what did I do? Then what did I do? Right. So I'll not read it all out, but first I looked at the situation to identify the issues and options, such as what are the company needs, what are the key features that are missing, needed, are the processes and needs similar across business units or geographies, what is the budget, which options are available, right? Now this shows that this person, whoever is answering this, goes into something with plan. Asking everything कि क्या मुझे करना है, क्या क्या मुझे चाहिए होगा. So this person is an structured person. This person is something who goes into a situation with a plan. Second, I organize and analyze the issues and related data, drafted our required specifications. Specifically, I compare data points of key features. Like again, analytical skills are coming here that this person basically can analyze data, draw conclusions, organize data, right? So that's the point. With every action that you are taking, that you're telling about your attributes. And the result is, as a result of applying my analytical skills to this complex task, I was able to identify existing system, the task, shortcomings, and to resolve them by recommending comprehensive solution at 20% below budget. Now there is some objective in this story, 20% below budget. That's the result. Right. Now the second thing, describe a time you had to use your leadership unexpectedly. I want you to pause this lecture. I want you to try to answer this. Now you can't say कि मैंने कभी job नहीं किया and this is the first time I'm doing a job. How can I talk about my leadership skills? If someone is asking this question to a fresher, they are not expecting, they know you are a fresher. They are not expecting an answer, a situation where you are telling about a job, but you have done group projects. You may have participated in college festivals and all that. Maybe conducted a function at home and all that. There can you pick a situation where you can show your leadership skills. Right. So pause this video, take a 2-minute break, try to think again. If this is the first time you are applying S.T.A.R, your answer will not be perfect, but at least you will get a sense of how to use S.T.A.R. So again, set up a situation, set up the task, actions that you took, think about qualities first, and then decide upon the actions and the result. Okay, if you have written it down, great. Let's go through the example and see what's written here, and then we'll see a bad example of a S.T.A.R. As I told you, there can be good examples of S.T.A.R and there can be bad examples of S.T.A.R, and you need to practice enough to reach good examples of S.T.A.R. So let's see. During my first year with the company, this basically is talking about a company. I was given the project manager role for a critical client account after long-term project manager suddenly became ill. The long-term project became ill. So this is definitely an unexpected situation where you had to play the manager's role. So now the task. My first priority was to win the confidence of both my team and the client by creating a roadmap that we could all follow to the successful completion. Once agreed, I need to make sure that everyone followed the specific steps required to meet the client's objectives. Right. So what are the tasks? Mostly I had to basically bring the team and the client on the same page and make sure that the project deadline is being met as per the client's objective. Right. Now the action that I took. In this case, you will see it's always I and not the team. Right. I began by calling a team meeting to develop a list of project deliverables along with the time and responsibility schedule. I identified, reviewed, and assigned each task to a responsible team member to ensure accountability. These steps gained broad-term buy-in and ensured that we had the right people and resources allocated to meet each milestone. Again, the core question was leadership skill, and this part is showing leadership skill. That I, as a leader, took initiative and started with the very basic thing of calling a team meeting and assigning tasks to everyone according to their capability. Next, I reviewed my proposed plan of action with my manager because there is someone I'm reporting to. Following his approval, I met with the client to make sure that they were addressing all his concerns. I returned to my team where we made some final adjustments based on client feedback. Again, I did this. I met with the manager. I made sure to bring client on the same page and took his requirements and to basically set these requirements correctly. I'll skip this, and in the result, so because of my leadership skills, I was able to step into a challenging situation and lead my team to a final result that met the high standards of both my company and the client. Right? Though there is no objective number, but the result is very objective. Now, compare this to the way you must have written your answer. Does your answer fits the criteria of I in action? What attributes is it showing? Right. Okay. Now, here's another example of the same question. Describe a time you had to use your leadership skills unexpectedly. Right. I'm giving you 30 seconds or 1 minute. Read through the left one. Right one is the same as we just read out. Left one is another example how this question can be answered. Some other person will go through this and tell me which answer would you prefer and why. Okay. Now, let's go through the left example. Right. I hope you were able to see some differences between the left answer and the second answer. Both are using S.T.A.R. Both are answering the same question, but there are some clear differences between these two. And I will go with the second one. And it's not because the content is more or language issues, to be honest. So let's analyze the left one. So let's see the situation. Right. About a year ago, I got the opportunity to lead a project after my manager became ill. I was not technically a manager yet, so this was a pretty big deal that I took very seriously. There is some informal bad grammar, but I'll not comment on that. In these kind of things, make sure in general also you're not focusing on your titles, you're focusing on your roles and accomplishments. Right. Rather than saying ki I was not technically a manager. This is not adding anything. It's just telling that you're fixing on the title manager. I had to quickly take charge in order to make sure that everyone pulled their weight on the project. Meeting this deadline was important because the guy we had to deal with on the client side had a reputation of being difficult to work with. Now, there's fundamentally nothing wrong with this, but the tone is more that you are criticizing the client using words like had a reputation of being difficult to work with. This question is about your leadership skill. This question is not about tell me about a difficult client, right? And the words you could have used here was having high expectation, had a reputation of having high expectation. Being difficult to work with sounds like you're criticizing the client. Be very careful of criticizing someone and definitely criticizing everyone in an interview. Right? Try to use words which are milder in tone. So rather than saying demanding, say basically, or rather than saying basically difficult to work with, you could have used demanding, or better, you could have used having high expectations. Right? Make sure you should not come out as a negative person, as a person who basically tries to find fault हर जगह कि सब खराब करते हैं मैं ही सही हूँ. Showing your leadership skills doesn't mean कि आप बाकी लोगों को criticize करो. Okay. First, I looked at the situation and decided to split the work evenly among the team members. This was difficult because some of the team members were technically pretty weak, and I would have to stay on top of them to make sure that they meet their deliverables. Again, the situation is realistic, right? Your team will have experienced members, inexperienced members, but calling your team members technically pretty weak, right, again shows negativity. You can say that as in every team, there were some experienced members and some less experienced members or new members in my team, right? And I had to make sure that the new members are not feeling overwhelmed. Yeah, I had to make sure to pay extra attention to the inexperienced members rather than calling them pretty weak, right? So this is what I'm talking about. Though the answer is following the STAR method, the attributes that you're showing, the personality trait that you're showing is more of criticizing everyone to show yourself as a leader. Also, you will never divide equal work between experienced team members and inexperienced team members, right? You will divide work according to your experience, according to their strengths. Next, then I tried to get approval from my manager and the client. See, what we are trying to do here is why we are analyzing this, so that we know that whatever we say and whatever interviewer is getting from us matters. It's not about कि हमने आंसर तो दे दिया, we didn't get stuck. It's about eventually interview को क्या मिला आपके आंसर्स. Then I tried to get approval from my manager and the client. It took a while to explain the situation to my manager because he was not very technical, but he had confidence in my abilities and eventually got on board. Unfortunately, the client had additional request. I was not able to convince the client that his changes would delay project completion. So I had to return to my office and give everyone on the project their revised work orders. Again, you are criticizing, you are describing your manager as saying he was not very technical, pointing out his negatives, pointing out that it was his fault, right? The general tone is that it's everyone's fault. The client is not listening to you. You try to explain the client, but he's not listening to you. He should have listened. Don't do that. You need to make sure that you are coming out as that we have a fruitful discussion where client has his concerns, right? And because client needs come first, we had to make some changes, right? Your tone matters. The answer का tone matter. It's not about eventually सारी बातें तो एक जैसी ही होती हैं. That's not how your attitude should be, right? So let me jump to the last one. So because of my leadership skills, the important project was completed. This cannot be a result, right? You're talking about the first time you had to show your leadership skill. You're managing a project. You have to talk about whether the client was satisfied. Were you able to meet deadlines? What was your manager's reaction, right? So your result should be a conclusion to all the attributes that you tried to show. So to summarize, first, you need to practice STAR. You need to make sure that you are set situation, task, action, and result is there. So this left example is a good example. At least STAR is there. The proportion is almost correct. Then you need to go deep down to make your answer perfect by telling what is the tone you are using, what are the attributes that you're trying to reflect, and are you able to show those attributes or not. And if you are able to show your attributes, every behavioral question will like a cake of it. So now a challenge for you. Pause this video for 2 minutes, try it, or even take 3 minutes, try to answer this question. How do you set and accomplish personal goals when under pressure? Give me an example. A classic example of a behavioral situational question asking you to tell about how do you accomplish personal goals while under pressure, right? Your psychology, your attributes, and try to basically, why the person is asking for an example, they want to see that whatever you are saying, you have applied it somewhere initially. So pause this video, try to basically come up with a good answer, STAR, situation, task, action, result. Pick up a good story from your college time, project time, school time, social life, anything, right? And try to answer this. So I hope you were able to use STAR to answer this. Let me give an example. Right, again I'm not giving you an answer कि ऐसे ही आपको करना है, but an example might help you. Right, so this is an example with an actual response which my friend gave. He is studying in Canada and he had to basically work part-time to make sure that his tuition fee is getting covered and all that. So this example you might not be able to use this example or use exact response, but it will tell you how he has used STAR in one of his interviews, right? So he's in University of Toronto. So he started with, sure, to give you some context, during university, I had very limited financial aid and my parents couldn't help co-pay the rest of the tuition. So while studying, I also had to work to pay for the university. At the same time, I also took up a lot of extracurricular activities and internships when possible to get as much professional work experience as possible before graduating. Situation thoda zyada hai as compared to what I would have liked, but nicely said, talking about why there was a pressure, right? And what were the personal goals. So to keep up with the workload, I realized I had to manage my time very efficiently. So I set up Google Calendar and got a personal notepad for my daily tasks and responsibility. Specific details, rather than saying that I had to manage my time, I set up my Google Calendar and personal notepad ताकि I can manage my time. Now what actions? Through hard work and dedication, I managed to balance studying, a part-time job and all extracurricular activities. See how I'm taking pauses, putting stress on all the parts. Balance studying, a part-time job and all extracurricular activities. Sure, it was pretty tiring at times, but by the end of each day, I would always go over and edit my calendar for the rest of the week. Again shows that while under pressure, personally I remain organized, I don't panic, I update, I change according to the situation. This way, I knew pretty much everything I had to get done daily and never missed an assignment or a deadline either. In the end, I graduated with a 3.7 GPA, no student loans, and a personal design portfolio which landed me my first real job at company X within a month of graduating. Quite an objective result. Why did I take that job? To make sure that I am able to pay my tuitions. And obviously, other part was I need to perform academically well. So 3.7 GPA, no student loans, no liabilities, and a personal design portfolio from my internship or my activities through which I got a job. So as you can see, it's not a very long answer. It's not a storytelling thing, but it shows the personal traits that this person, while under pressure, the first response is organizing things, calendar, saying what are the tasks, to-do list and all that. And the second trait is that this person makes sure that he knows that situation changes on a daily basis. So he's customizing, he's changing his plans list on a daily basis. And then in the end, he is able to get out of that pressure situation in the most ideal way. This is what you have to do. Now again, go back after this lecture, see what was your answer to this question and compare this to the example I have quoted and see where you can improve. Always question, as always, you have to always question what personality traits are you showing in an interview. I can't stress enough, मैं और stress नहीं कर सकता. This is the only thing that matters. कि क्या qualities आपके निकल के आ रही हैं when you are answering these questions. कहीं पे भी इसने ये नहीं बोला कि I am a very efficient time manager, but ये निकल के आया that this person is very efficient in time management. He knows how to manage time. Right. Okay. So this is what you have to do for your interview preparation. You have your resume. If you don't have your resume right now, please make one. Take every project of yours and try to fill up this grid. Challenges you faced in that project. Mistake, it's not a one-liner thing. Mistakes and failures, if any. Leadership skills that you showed in that project. It can be technical project, whatever project you have written in your resume. Conflicts if happened. And what would you do differently given the chance? Right. This shows a learning attitude. If you can answer this question, this shows a learning attitude that after every project, after every task, You think back and see, oh, these are the things I could have done differently to make it more better, make it efficient, make it better. Right. Again, not all of the fields will be filled for every project. There might be some, if you are doing a solo project, leadership will not be there, right? But for every project in your resume, you need to fill this chart. And if you are able to fill this chart, you are prepared for any unexpected question that can come out of your resume. And this is what I did. This is what all of my friends did while they were preparing for their interviews. So take a screenshot if you want. Again, pick your project 1, fill this. Pick your project 2, fill this. Pick your project 3, fill this. Right. If you are able to fill this, do various iterations, and you will not be unprepared for your interview, at least unexpected questions from your resume. So this I am leaving it to do on your own, right? You can submit, you can mail me. So what was the takeaway from today's lecture? The takeaway is that for behavioral question, STAR is really important. Just to give you an example, I always give example of Amazon. Amazon on their official website, if you search Amazon jobs, you will find they suggest their candidates be familiar with STAR methodology before coming to their interviews. That's how important, that's how prevalent STAR is. Make sure you're focusing on your actions and clearly telling the results. Now, there can be good approach in STAR and a bad STAR answer. Right. A good STAR answer always focus on the actions more. You include actions that shows different qualities. The result needs to be as quantifiable as possible, and don't be negative. The tone has to be in general positive. Don't criticize others. Don't badmouth others while trying to make it actionable. You have to make you look actionable and not trying to put others down. दूसरों को नीचा नहीं दिखाना है, खुद को आपको actionable दिखाना है. And please go through standard behavioral questions, right? There are standard behavioral questions about, tell me about an unexpected situation. Tell me about a situation where you fail. Tell me about a situation where you handle pressure, right? Try to basically be prepared with 2 or 3 stories that you can twist according to that question asked. Because almost in all stories, all situations, you can pick leadership qualities, you can pick pressure qualities, you can pick time management qualities, right? You just have to make sure that you're twisting your answers accordingly. So, again, to summarize, become a STAR by using STAR. What is STAR? Situation, task, action, and result in 90 seconds. If you are prepared, you will be able to answer all your behavioral questions and you will be the star of that interview. Bye.